Harriet Eleanor Fay marries James Smith Bush. Samuel Prescott Bush marries Flora Sheldon Bush. Prescott Sheldon Bush marries Dorothy Walker. George Herbert Walker Bush marries Barbara Pierce of Alnwick Castle, and that is Perseus the poet. Yeah, and I can hear the winds howling again. And I think I'll now go out and get myself some dinner. Yeah? But no, let's continue down the tabs. There is the Ingeborg pagan culls, yeah, for the Danish. Yeah? And that is Bose Lion fleeing to Denmark so that she can have babies. And there is Fergus, and this is the Fergus, this is the bloodline for Sally Magnusson, and all their massive, so they're tied in with Fordan and MacAlpine, and the myths and the suspects, errors up to 40 generations become mystical. Yeah, that is the clan MacAlpine that are descended from the earliest popes. Lord MacAlpine, you sad bastard. Yeah, pretended to be dead already, now talking to me, and he's called Neil, which is the joke about Christianity and the execution and the knighting of all of the traitors like him. Yeah, Al Pacino is in the world's most evil bloodline, which is why they made the Devil's Advocate movie. Right then, let's just keep going to show you British and American fucking history. There is Windsor of Buckingham, but without the E on the end. Yeah, Elizabeth Lovell, Elizabeth Andrews, George Puttenham, Anne Fiennes, and the Windsor bloodline, Ralph Fiennes. Yeah, or the great in Bruges buffoonery. Yeah, and that is to cover the fact that Nick Clegg's wife ran an assassination bureau in Brussels. Thomas Windsor, Constable of Windsor Castle, Edmund Dudley, yeah, that's the Dudleys I used to play rugby with, and they are from Warwick, because they were useless, and that is the John of Warwick joke, that we've got to pretend to King Arthur that his kingdom is better than anything we've ever had before, and there are the Fowlers and the Hogans of Liverpool Football Club that are still on the fucking board. Yeah, that is the Fowlers of ancient Italy, married to Elizabeth, descended from Elizabeth Windsor of Brandenlove, that's Brandenburg in Germany, and appropriately they now live in Buckinghamshire in England. Constable of Windsor Castle. Sorry, can't get it to focus. Yeah, and on it goes. Elizabeth Dudley, Stourton of Stourton, that is the musical man that presents Radio 4's music every Sunday morning. Yeah, and there is Elizabeth Windsor, Anthony Windsor, mother Elizabeth Lovell, and married Ralph Scrope, Scrope, Stanwell of Middlesex in England. Yeah, and that we could go on and on forever on those family trees like that. So let's go to William the Conqueror. Yeah, and this is the FALAISE Castle jokes and all the fairy tale naming of the princesses out of the Salic lands, where they're not allowed to become a queen unless they marry into an elder dynasty. Okay, there is William the First of England, William the Conqueror, Guillaume le Conquerant, Guillaume le Bâtard, Fitzrobert, yeah, the Duke of Normandy. That is the Robertian lineage that the gods hate. William the Second, William the Bastard, William the Second, Duke of Normandy, William Fitzrobert, William Beauclerk, William of Normandy, and hey presto, the Clintons just appear in the Norman Peninsula. Robert the First, magnificent, Duke of Normandy, and Herlave of Falaise. Do you get it? That's Fala the dog on Franklin D. Roosevelt's lap, as he promises never to take us into the war, but eventually has to do it. And then he launches the Cold War, which is why God killed him so quickly after that. William the Conqueror, Calvados, Bass, Normandy, the Billy Bass joke out of ancient Rome. Yeah, and the issues that killed the Lib Dem, yeah, after he'd seen Thingaby Prescott, John Prescott's Fish, yeah, and everybody that gets an interview with Tony Blair used to talk about seeing John Prescott's fish, which of course is actually John Prescott's penis, and John Prescott has a big penis because he's pretending that he's from the Piso lineage, which is why the word Piso is in his surname, which is Prescott, and that is the Bush family's joke too, and on it goes, because all of them are descended from the world's tyrants. Right then, so Falaise and FDRs, yeah, that's the Franklin D. Roosevelt, and let me show you the Falaise Castle. Yeah, there it is. Same as Windsor on the cliff top for the Thunderbirds. Do you get it? And all of the little cartoon characters that every child likes to get for their Christmas. When we got it in Hexham, the Frenchman was actually dead scared that somebody might get killed in the war game. Yeah, and that is Falaise Castle, and it's the same for the Onassis family when they moved the homes to Greece. All of it is the same abbreviation, and the people that came to me with horrible cancers and apologised for being Fultons and members of those Fulton bloodlines, they are actually the owners of Falaise Castle for huge chunks of time, and that is what is planted in Lynn Forrester de Rothschild's Windsor Palace. Yeah, and that is the Windsor Palace that was owned by Windsor, yeah, before they have to change their name. Yeah, and all of that is the demonization of Prince Albert. Yeah, and all of that is because he's a German, and not many people know, unless you're a scholar like me, that, and I did not know it until the gods had battered into me that I needed to study the Shin and the takeover by the Hanoverian kings of that throne, yeah, that was rightly should have been in the hands of at least 50 claimants that were Roman Catholic Stuart descendants. Instead, we get the massive massacre that is the killing of every Catholic, yeah, and not allowing them to get a university education at the elite universities that later become immune from bombing and the training places for the Monty Python's billionaires that have laughed at the concept of Jesus ever since it was launched. Yeah, and that is, I believe that they are now laughing that I am playing the role of a Jesus-like character, and they want to obfuscate everything that I do, and they're going to have a great deal of difficulty in doing that, Donald. Yeah, before the gods give you that conscience. Complex. Okay, so there it is, the Chateau de Falaise that becomes Windsor Forest. Yeah, for the Windsors that have long ago dropped that name since they shared it with the Baldwins, yeah, of Jerusalem. Okay, so Exmees, not sure what that is. Exmees is a place in Normandy, former commune, yeah, France, and this is where FALAISE Castle is. There's Fitzosborne, first Earl of Hereford and Shrewsbury, yeah, Hereford, the Wake, and all of those medieval stories that mean that Shakespeare is allowed to control what actually happens to John of Gaunt for real. Yeah? Not many people know, I believe, that Hilary and Donald are descended from John of Gaunt in Lancashire. There's the Baldwins, the sixth cousins, the sixth court of Flanders, and there is Baldwin the sixth, Count Flanders, Guillaume's BR on law. I'm not sure what that means. Yeah, Baldwin, Count of Flanders, in that long lost family tree that I was just able to find for you. Yeah, and there's the Harvey jokes for the duelists again. That's Harvey Keitel and all of the Lubavitcher armies that came out of Protestant Europe to steal the whole of Western Europe from its indigenous peoples, and that is the Scotsmen like me and my dad. Yeah, that might sound a little bit bitchy to you, Hannah. I hope it does. Okay, and there, yeah, and all those wars that have been fought in the name of uniting with England so that everybody here can just have their lives and live happily ever after. Instead, the Rothschilds send them to war all over the world. That is Baldwin the Sixth, Count of Flanders, and Hainault. Yeah, that's the Flanders field for the poppies. Yeah, father was Baldwin the Fifth of Flanders, and Richilde was the spouse, and she is the Countess of Hainault in the Belgian EU scam. And there is Baldwin the Fifth, that presumably was the father of the sixth Count of Flanders. Count of Flanders. Do you remember the poppy wreaths and the British royals going over to the French coast and then visiting all of the war graves places that they make their money from the poppies from Gerald Grosvenor, you sad bastard? Yeah, Cholmondeley, Warner, and all the covers up, Portman, all of them are the families that marry into Rothschild, and there is Ogive of Luxembourg, Baldwin the Fourth, Count of Flanders, Adele of France, House of Flanders, Lille of Flanders, aged 55 when she died. Arras and the great battles in World War I in the trenches, where the heroes of Arras come back with a medal on top of the little box, and then it goes to Royal Wootton Bassett so that the whole of the fascist world can have a laugh at the war dead at the next Olympics. Maud and Matilda on that handwritten family tree that we've just seen. waltzing Matilda. It is incredible. These are the Ogilvies and Airleys that come out of Luxembourg and become Queen of England as wife of Guillaume. Yeah, did not know that until I reread it this evening. That is the Airley family and the Ogilvies that were married to that woman that is Princess Alexandria of Russia, and she's still on the committee of 300, if any of it is to be believed. Yeah, Matilda of Flanders, waltzing Matilda for the Pogues, and seeing what it's like to go back to your lover with no limbs on your body. Ginny Matilda. Yeah, and this time it's the Hainault families, it's the Hugheses of Celtic. Yeah, and they were in the pub the other night looking penitent, but they're still orca fat, even like they were when they were playing. Yeah, Matilda of Flanders, and that is the Hughes families that is on the world-owning David Icke bloodline. And there is Renaud II, Comte de Bar, Agnes of Champagne. Yeah, Louis, and that is the families that are the Queen of England's champagne producers, that are Poppo of Grapfield, and all the massive overpricing scams for the champagne scams by the British royals, so that they could not be discovered as the Jack the Ripper murders for Prince Eddie. Anyway, we'd better stop soon, otherwise I'm not going to get anything to eat at all. There is the Genie of Fala, and that is Conan of Britannia II, Fulbert of Falaise. Yeah, that is Ian Fulton that got the lethal blood cancer. He was in my class at the school. Yeah, but not educationally. Doda of Falaise, Robert I, the magnificent Duke of Normandy, Herleva of Falaise, William the Conqueror, King of England, Matilda of Flanders, on that handwritten bloodline tree, with the man that was the treasurer for Mrs. Thatcher when they took us into Argentina. Right then, and here's the tall boys that become the American presidential bloodlines. William de Lancaster. William Fitzgilbert was a nobleman of the 12th century in northwest England, where they are descended to the claimants for the American presidency in the last election, both from Lancaster and the Gaunt family trees. Yeah, and I forget what the family is. That is the Rupert Murdoch joke, but they are the families that are in this bloodline. Are also, they are oh God, I've forgotten the name of it, but that is the, all of them are descended from the woman that is the concubine for the family that was John of Gaunt, and their name is, it's all through Rupert Murdoch's media, and it is no, I can't remember it. Would have to look at the family tree featuring Donald and Hillary, but I don't have time to do that. So there's the tall boys, and that is the American bloodline into Bush and Roosevelt. Yeah, and that is the tall boy wardrobe joke that becomes the joke about the gold bricks and coming out yeah, and keeping your stash in your wardrobe. And even that is in that movie about Richard the Lionheart and his family and keeping Eleanor of Aquitaine in jail. Yeah. And all of the lovers and homosexuals are hiding in the wardrobe in that movie. Okay, and there's the Worsleys that are related to uh, the serial killer in Ireland that is Cromwell. Okay, that's the Worsleys that I used to work with at the University of Sunderland, and those are the Schleswig-Holstein, Sonderburg-Glucksburg family trees. He then married Catherine Lucy Mary Worsley, yeah, who was, as a relative of Oliver Cromwell, the close cousin of Queen Victoria on the bloodline. Yeah, he gained the title HRH Prince Edward of Kent on 9th October 1935. That is Edward what abdicated with the sordid Mrs. Simpson. Right then, so that's Bessie Warfield, yeah, and that's the Tallboys family tree, and that is the Warfields that took us to war by abdicating and spending their whole of their war having orgies in France. Yeah, and that will be in Boulogne to make it poetic for Nell Gwyn and her families. Yeah, and the Rothschild mansions that are used to be the residences of Eustace of Boulogne. Yeah, I've lost my patience, Hannah. Holstein Sonderburg Glucksburg, Princess of Greece and Denmark, Catherine Lucy Mary Worsley, yeah, Oliver Cromwell, and the serial killing Protestants that mean that everything is rabid in Orange Ireland, and everything that was the leadership team are Orange billionaires. Right then, and you get Mrs. Simpson being Bessie Warfield. The American woman that I met yesterday had never heard of Mrs. Simpson. And I don't know whether or not she had heard of World War II, because she's an artist like Hannah Mary Rothschild. Mrs. Simpson Jeans Elizabeth Pinson Warfield de Normandy. Yeah, with the word P and I at the beginning of their name. Richard Warfield was a reverend, and his first name is Pinson. Yeah, like Matthew Pinson. Yeah, the famous rower who was actually trained and reared in Kelso in the Episcopalian Church with the initials Calpurnius Piso emblazoned on the church roof. Okay, and I think it's quite gusty out there now. Poor American women did not know who Mrs. Simpson was. Captain Richard Warfield, the founder of her family tree. And that's not necessarily the Warburgs that actually launched the Federal Bank, just as America were asked to enter World War I. And there's Mrs. Simpson's genealogical tree, which is really quite embarrassing, even if you're American and you don't understand it. Wallis, Duchess of Windsor, Anna Warfield Emery, William Lefan Montague, Mountain from a Molehill, Victor Powellen Montague, Thomas Wells Warfield, yeah, and the tree above, C. Lloyd Roberts on Truman and the others. Yeah, that is the Montagues, Mrs. Simpson's mum's maiden name. Yeah, and that is the selling of Scotland to the United Kingdom by the Montagues and their hyphenated names that are all the first cousins of the Queen of England still. That is the Dukes of Buccleuch and Queensferry, who took the cash to create the United Kingdom, and I'd forgotten that they are the sordid relatives of Prince Edward, yeah, who was her lover, even although she was a hermaphrodite, and she's got both bits, and all of that is a huge adventure for corrupted Queenie's family. Right then, so I think we should stop in a little bit now. So there's Mrs. Simpson. William the Conqueror, Pagan de Warfield, was one of the 6,000 of the flower and chivalry of Normandy who in 1066, under William the Conqueror, made themselves masters of the horse in Britain, I suspect. Yeah, and there's the name Hancock. Yeah, and all of the traitors, Blogg Gerald Warfield, Daughters of the American Revolution magazine, yeah, and there in 1066 are the Sara Elizabeth Warfield coming across with Guillaume the Conqueror. And there's the family tree. Sara Elizabeth Warfield, her maiden name is Pierpoint, like the Morgan banking family. Anne Arundel, County, Province of Maryland, wife of Alexander Warfield Sr. So I think you'll be getting a little bit bored with the treason now. It never really ends, does it? Yeah, Sara Elizabeth Warfield, Harvey, and back to where we started with the families that are the duelists, and Harvey Keitel with the Lubavitcher hairdos. Okay, Harvey, father, Agnes, Pierpoint, Harvey. Do you get it? That is Pierpoint Morgan, that did not even need to win an election to become the president, because he was shooting bears in the woods, Hannah, and all of it is really quite sordid, which is why I've given up on you as a lost cause. Sara Elizabeth Warfield Pierpoint. Yeah, and his predecessor was still alive when they tried to assassinate him, so they killed him in the ITU, so that then the man that is Teddy Roosevelt could then take his place in the museum film. And there is the Stiller museum film. And Stiller is a traitor too. I can't remember why. There are the Sillers, a Mississippi Delta family. Yeah, and that is the Sellers that were the banking dynasty out of Germania. Dr. Elisha Warfield held the chair of surgery and obstetrics in Transylvania University at Lexington. And that's where you get bitten in the neck if it's a full moon, and that is typical Rothschild and museum material. Stiller and the museum linkage, and there is Truman, who is the first cousin of Keza Dugdale. And David Cameron. Hinckley, Governor Thomas Hinckley of the Plymouth colony, Joseph Holy, George Allen in turn was also an ancestor of a British Prime Minister, Sir Winston Churchill. There is Henry Corbin, and everything that we have now as the Muppet Show. Henry Lighthorse Harry Lee, father himself by Anne Hill Carter of Confederate General Robert Edward Lee. The best royal descent of Martin Eltonhead Conway is almost certainly from King Edward the Longshanks, King of England, died 1307, killed actually by the sun god Sol Natalis Invictus on the Solway Firth. Yeah, and my gods have a huge sense of humour. Yeah, the Gerard families, Elton Head families of medieval and early modern England. The First Lady that was born into Theodore Newton Vale, First Lady Louise Axon Wilson, first wife of Woodrow Wilson, who committed us to the Federal Reserve scam, yeah, and at the same time to entering World War I when he had promised never to make us do that. I think I'm going to stop there now. It's all quite sad, really. And you had the capacity to change it, Hannah, but you've opted to be a Brexit enthusiast like the whole of the rest of them, with the possible exception of Shona Robinson. Perhaps the late Bessie Wallace Warfield, Duchess of Windsor, Elton Head descendants include, yeah, and all of it. I'm going to stop now. Oh no, there's Gary Lloyd Roberts, the most influential genealogist in world history, and he's a Robertian, but the gods tolerate him because he tells the truth about how corrupted the whole of the launch of America has been, and every war it's ever been in has been a profit stream for that woman that is the little bitch that is Hannah Mary Rothschild and her male relatives. And there's the merchant adventurer companies that allowed the Pilgrim Fathers to get there and brutalise the whole of the pagan nation that Donald wants to build a wall round again, because there are none of the pagans left in it. Yeah, all of them died in those wars that were engineered by the exiles from Europe, like Woodrow Wilson. That's the Merchant Adventurers Company of London and York, and I've got all the director details for the current directors right to this very day. And that is Christopher Martin was the money man for that company on the Mayflower, and he is descended from Flavius Josephus, yeah, which is why these videos are so difficult to find, because I was focusing on the corrupted Catholic religion. That means that the corrupted Catholic descendants can no longer be claimants to the English-German throne that has been taken over both by George I and his family and by George Bush's family, yeah, in that massive scam at the beginning of World War II, when Mengele and Bush and Wooster et al. Went across to America as double agents to trade with the enemy and to become the world's richest and most infamous people. Staplers, Lord Mayor of London after France invaded by Longshanks. The Company of Merchants of the Staple of England is an English company incorporated by Royal Charter in 1319. And there are the inns in London and Holborn Tobacco and all the restaurants and the places for the hellfire religious jokers, and many of them are actually religious bankers. Yeah, usual suspects, Hannah. Be quite humorous in my current state, yeah, on your position as a world leader if you went bald. Yeah, just a thought. Yeah. Dorian Gray, and all of it is coming at you unless you change your ways. Antwerp Hanseatic League. The inn was transferred from the and there is the goon show for all of the people like Bentinck, yeah, and Portman that become, and Cavendish, all of them become the goons. Yeah, and that is the same as the Hellfire Club taking the piss out of your creator and pretending that that creator is actually the devil, and Baphomet and everything that the Satanists worship in the Kabbalist union that is now consuming the evil woman that is she's Chris Martin's ex-wife is Gwyneth Paltrow. She's a Kabbalist with Madonna and with all of those ancient actresses that were picked to be the Kabbalist in their day in Hollywood, totally evil, the Society of Jesus who never lived, and that is the concept that they are the goon worshippers and that God is the goon that never lived. Yeah, they do not know that there is a God in the heavens, and that God is the person that sends them to their burials, yeah, or to their friends' burials, yeah, limping on the stick or the splints. Yeah. So next is maps not allowed, and I think we should just stop there. That's to see out of Toronto and all the stock market scams that happened when Clinton got in touch with his mates that were running McGill University, and all of it is the corrupted Clinton that came out of Bedfordshire with the Cheneys, yeah, and all of it, Dick Cheney is cited as one of the heroes in the White House as of last night. Yeah, and all of them are going to have to change their policy decisions, and I think that is a good place to stop. Okay, and there is Guillaume and Hadrian's Wall, and the massive empires, and there are the Pilgrim Fathers that went with Admiral Leblanc, and that is the Ferrers dynasty of Derbyshire, and we could go on and on and on with the diasporas of the white man all over the pagan world, but none of those pagans are left alive, even the ones that were called J.P. Morgan in the early days. Yeah, and were allowed to shoot bears in the woods as they waited for the real president to die so that they would not need to bother with an election, Hannah. Pierpoint Morgan. Yeah, and there is the Crackcroft linkage to the Windsors that I will tell you about before I leave the city of Dundee. Bankrupt or not. Okay, and there is Mortimer of Leeds and all the massive links to the sales and the women that are the prostitutes for Commoner Kate's team. And there are the Harrys that negotiated with Rothschild for the Battle of Waterloo. And all of that was horribly anti-Semitic for that little witch that is Hannah Mary Rothschild. I'm going to stop there.